that's for me. Living life so merrily, it's so easy, can't you see? Polka, polka, that's for me. Polka, polka, everyone come along, it's lots of fun.
Okay, welcome back. You got Miguel Arati here with the Talk and Shoot podcast. We are heading into part 3 of the greatest boxer of all time discussion. I'm bringing back Mike Davis, who's been along with me for part 1 and part 2. I'm going to not joining us, rather, is going to be Keith Palmer this time. Unfortunately, Keith, had to get married and buy a house, and
those restrictions that maturity and
I told him this was important, and he, this is part of the problem. But I think we're going to be in terrific hands here, because joining us is a newcomer. Actually, this is our first time interacting on this stuff here, but is Dave Sudursky. He's from Boston. He's a member of the Classic Boxing Society online. He describes himself as a lifelong boxing fan. He's got a Facebook page called Mythical Boxing that you can hit like on. It would be terrific. And he has a blog going called mythicalboxing.weebly.com that you can check out. He is running a program for us called the Title Bout Simulator, and what we've done is we've taken a list of the 16 guys that we had mulched over and talked about for 2 podcasts, and we just ran them through a computer program just to create a discussion. So it's a little bit of a different tact. Mike, I think, was commenting that it's going to be hard to advance at a certain point just using, our own arguments, our own word of mouth. And it would be nice to have some direction. So that's what Dave is here to help us with.
Yeah, I think the first cut was, although difficult, was made easy by, if you weren't multiple weight class world champion, we took you completely off the list, with the exception, obviously, of the heavyweights. So, it comes to a point in the discussion where you can talk to your blue in the face, and you're never going to get a resolve that everybody's happy with. So we came up with the conclusion of, let's just take this out of our hands completely. If everyone's going to get mad at somebody, why should it be you and I, Miguel? Let's let them get mad at Dave and his simulator.
Throw me under the bus.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't think it's going to go that way, because obviously we previewed the results, and I think we got a spectacular thing going. What do you think, Dave?
I think it's great. I appreciate your including me, and this is fun stuff.
Yeah, and so this is what we did. We took a list of heavyweights, and I called them bigs and smalls because they were light heavyweights, and some belonged here and there. And there's always discussion, and there's probably room for more weight classes and things. But
I mean, Harry Greb, which obviously is one of our finalists. He's certainly somebody that was kind of a tweener, too big for the little guys, but too small for the big guys.
And so he went with the big guys, and another guy like that is Walker, who went with the little guys.
Right. So you're kind of dividing. So why don't we start with now, for those of you who don't know, Miguel Arati, I've known him for 15 plus years, and he is a professional matchmaker, in every word of the sense, because you have done it on every level, including for pay-per-views. So Miguel came out with the matchups, and if you don't know anything about Miguel, he likes to match the fight that everybody wants to see in the first round, because whenever you go through a tournament, as I have experienced with Miguel, having watched his tournaments lay out, generally speaking, the fights you really want to see never happen in a tournament format. Am I correct when I say that, Miguel?
You're correct, and then there's attrition in a tournament if you're doing them all in one day. What we're doing here is a little bit of a simulation, so you don't have quite the same effect. And I thank Mike for the pop. Basically, just to clarify, especially for the boxing people, most of my experience is matchmaking MMA and that sport. Which has a lot of similarities, and I have been a matchmaker in Costa Rica for boxing as well, and I've been involved in the development of a couple of champions down here in Costa Rica. Brian Vasquez, who's WBC interim super featherweight champion, and Hannah Gabriels, who's got one of the women's welterweight belts, the WBO, I think. But none of that's important. What's important here is that we get right into the heavyweights. And right off the bat, we talked about Harry Greb, and I put Harry Greb in against Sam Langford because I just think it's a classic fight. I'm going to let Dave take us through the numbers that came out here and explain how he did he ran the simulation 100 times. Dave, explain your system.
Okay, so yes, I run the simulations 100 times through title bout just so that we get a good enough sample size to make a reasonable evaluation. And do you want me to go through the numbers on Greb Langford now?
Yeah, if you want to shoot through them. I do want to...
Your algorithm, like, what is the simulation like for those of us like myself that have never seen it before? What's the algorithm in regards to how they decide who wins and who loses?
Or just give us a general description, also some of the limitations. I'd like to mention that there is a setting apparently for pound, which will even out things a little bit too. It takes the weight classes out of it. And also we're limited to 15 rounds. Things like that, if you want to describe, Dave?
Sure, and I am not a computer programmer, so this is a program that I purchased online. So they have a series of ratings for the fighters in various categories: accuracy, punching power, defense, and we could go all the way down the line. And from there, select the two fighters. You can run a live simulation, or you can just, like what I did was I just told it to run 100 simulations, and it gave me the numbers from there.
Okay, terrific. So, but you could actually literally read along text of round per the fight from what I've seen as well. Is that right?
That's correct.
So, I mean, it's a pretty cool program.
That's pretty awesome.
It's not going to be perfect, but it's a pretty cool program. And Dave has run some simulations online that have just been a blast to read, honestly. So let's go ahead and read through the Greb Langford numbers on the 100 times.
Okay, so this was, as I think you would expect, this was basically a 50-50 fight. Langford won 42 simulations to 41 for Greb. 17 ended in draws. Not much to choose from in terms of the numbers. Connect percentage, almost identical. Both were somewhere around 38%. Greb landed 4 more punches per round, but Langford landed the harder punches. If I was doing this as a written mock-up, I would have called it Langford by split decision.
So you're describing a war. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I mean, if you look at the guys' resumes on both ends, this really is a match that very well could have come through at the final and been the last fight of this simulation. But in terms of like just maybe in my head I've got a little bit of an idea of thinking about it as a live event too. So they fight one fight, split decision 15, and Langford has to go off and prepare to fight again, or at least he's going to wait a month or so before he's fighting another fight in a tournament format. So,
so can I do the honors?
Okay, Harry Greb is gone, and Keith Palmer is knocking down walls in his new house.
Yeah, he'll never call us again. Okay, Harry Greb, born Edward Henry Greb, known as the Pittsburgh Windmill, the Smoke City Wildcat, boasting a 261 wins, 17 losses, 19 draws. We bid farewell to you, a man that fought 16 Hall of Famers for a combined total of 48 times, going 33-9-6 against the men that would later be inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame. We bid farewell to you, sir.
All right.
That's rough, man. Watching him leave makes me sad.
Dave? Hey,
Dave, let me tell you something. I've got one for every single fighter. This is going to be a long podcast. Go ahead.
It is. Those numbers you just laid out are just mind-blowing.
I know, right?
But
incredible.
The thing I noticed too is that at the end of the day, what you're discussing is just how you picture a fight like that would go between the two guys. Because I think you've got weight really wouldn't even count because it never counted for either guy anywhere in their career. And just the numbers so similar, I think maybe Greb would have a higher punch count because he was known for that, but maybe he finds himself in a tough fight and had to adjust, and you can talk your way through just about anything with the talent level of the guys. But so we've got Langford possibly banged up in a split decision advancing here in the tournament. And
bruised and battered is what I was told what happened to him in that fight.
Yeah. Now, the next one we got is another one I thought, people would say, oh, that's a fight, that if you're doing a tournament, that happens later or whatever. But, I think we get to see it. And one of those guys that could finish up top is going to go after this fight, and that's Gene Tunney and Muhammad Ali. Dave, you want to take us through this one?
Okay, this was another very close simulation. Ali won 48 simulations to 42 for Tunney. 10 fights ended in draws. 86 of the 100 fights went the distance, so not too many stoppages either way. The punches landed were roughly even, with an Ali having a 22 to 21 advantage of punches landed per round. Ali had a 10% advantage in connect percentage, 40% to 30%, and I was surprised actually that this one came out as closely as it did.
I was shocked when you sent me those numbers as well. Although obviously you have to respect Gene Tunney, and as we've all discussed in the past, he is a super tough guy. The original Floyd Mayweather money team member, as far as I'm concerned. I thought he may have gotten Ali, to be honest with you. But based on the simulation, it didn't happen.
Yeah, I think it's a battle. Tunney's a guy that I don't know. He's hard to classify for me because I think he's probably a little bit better than people talk about him because he just didn't. He wasn't a fan favorite ever, and a lot of.
He didn't fight enough either. Like if you look at his numbers,
he's got 70 fights, Mike.
You're right, but look at Harry Greb at the same time.
No, of course, but I think it had to do with his personality, with the fact, like we pointed out in a previous podcast, that he was a rich guy. But I think talent-wise and in the ring, you're talking about a guy that may have been as dangerous as anybody else, ever, because of the things that he was able to do and stuff. Now, yeah, he got Dempsey, a soft version at the end of his career that made him and stuff, but every indication is that the guy was like a near flawless fighter. With Ali, I just thought Ali might be, if you're weighing in athleticism, Ali might have some advantages there and a little bit of size and stuff like that. Because they tend to be smaller in the other eras, and I thought that could make the difference. But I thought Tunney was going to be a good match in terms of keeping it close because I think he's underrated with a lot of his resume. Dave, you want to add anything?
I would agree. I think Ali. I think of guys like Norton, Doug Jones, who gave him some trouble. He had some, issues defensively at times, and he was troubled by certain styles, and Tunney may have been one of those styles that would have been a challenge for him.
Right, and that's a good point. And the thing about Ali too is it sort of depends, and this touches on another point that Mike has brought up consistently here, and it is important to take into account. Is what year or at what point or at what peak are we putting Muhammad Ali? Is this the 64 version?
If you look at his last, that Trevor Berbick fight.
Well, those don't even count, but even he was a different fighter even for Frazier. You know what I mean? For the Frazier fights compared to like when he won the belt and when he was a young man in 63, 64, those are two completely different fighters.
Absolutely. talking about at their peak, or when they're struggling for cash at the end, going, "Shit, where did it go?"
I mean, so that plays into it because I think the early Ali gets Tunney. The 63, 64 Ali, where he could rely on his speed and physical gifts. I think that Ali beats Tunney. I don't know that it doesn't get more complicated for him with the 73 version or the version that he threw at Foreman, for example. Let's go ahead and move on there. So we got Muhammad Ali and Sam Langford. We're going to do something special at the end of this, so it's not like a bracket, and Langford and Ali are unlikely to meet in the next round. We're going to try to do something.
Well, let me interject. A man known as the Fighting Marine, Gene Tunney, rated at light heavyweight and heavyweight champion, wore titles at both of those weight classes. 65 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, and 1 no contest. With a man with 2 wins over Jack Dempsey, including the famous long count bout. To you, sir, we say goodbye. I think he also got a victory over Tom Heaney at heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
In 28, I believe. Okay. Next we got Archie Moore and
Ezzard Charles. And this is, here's another one where these guys did it in real life, and Ezzard held the advantage in real life, when I made the match, I said, man, that's going to get rid of Archie early, but we did a lot of painful. It's going to be painful when we lose some of these guys. So
it's going to be painful anyway. You might as well just rip the Band-Aid off.
And so we're doing a rematch of a match that already went down, and that's interesting to me too, because now if it was a great simulation, like a truly great simulation for a nerd like me, I would be able to add Langford's win over Greb to his record, and it would count that for his win for his fight the next time. But we won't get into that because we need a programmer, not a dreamer. But Dave, I'm going to let you go through the numbers on Moore and Charles.
Okay. This was another razor-close simulation. Charles won 47 times. Moore won 46. There were 7 draws. The stats were very close. Moore actually, interestingly, had a slight edge in connect percentage, about 33% to 30%, and punches landed per round, 21.3 to 20.7. And I think, in the end, it's just Charles just seemed to have Archie Moore's number.
Yeah, he seemed to have more power too. He got 28 stoppages total, which to Moore's 23. So they knocked themselves out at least half the fights.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They were.
To even try to all right, we're going through these fights and we're matching these guys up. It's like every single time you guys mention these names, it's like boom, my mind is blown just imagining something like that happening.
Yeah, no, that's the part of it I enjoy. Maybe one day we can get together too and read through some of the simulations because they make great reading. Dave was recently doing a light heavyweight tournament that was just everybody enjoyed it. Yeah, and it spurs discussion, which is the main job we're trying to get done here.
Exactly. Archie Moore takes a loss on this. A man known as the Old Mongoose, my favorite nickname in boxing, I might add, boasted a record of 185 wins, 23 losses, 10 draws, 1 no contest. We say goodbye not only to the person with one of the longest fighting professional careers in the sport, but also the longest reigning light heavyweight world champion of all time. Take care, sir.
Archie Moore, one more for the road.
That's it. See ya. He gone.
Okay, man, that's a tough one. Now we're gonna move on. The last fight. I'm not, I was a little hazy there on our podcast because we were all confused, and I slipped Marciano in here, and I'm not sure this wasn't supposed to be Fitzsimmons, but we did Joe Louis was Rocky Marciano, and take it away, Dave.
Okay.
I think it was Fitzsimmons. You're right.
But let's see what we got, and we'll work on it.
Right. It's too late.
Okay, so Joe Louis won this one pretty cleanly. He won 61 simulations compared to 36 for Marciano. There were 3 draws. Well, there was a wide disparity in connect percentage. Joe Louis connected on nearly 61% of his punches compared to 33 for Rocky.
Wow.
Louis landed close to 8 more punches per round, 26.5 to 18.9 for Rocky. 34 of Rocky's wins were by stoppage, 34 of the 36. 41 of Lewis's 61 wins were by stoppage, and I think in the end, it reflects that both men had tremendous punching power, but overall, Joe Louis just was the more skilled fighter and had more wins.
At the end of the day, he's still Joe Louis. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the Rocky thing. We mentioned it the other time too, but I thought that Rocky's going to lack athleticism when it comes down to some of this. And here against a guy, you can praise his heart and skill and wherewithal in the ring all you want, but you're not going to have advantages in gamesmanship at boxing over Joe Louis. So with all those things equal, what starts to make the decision? Things like athleticism and point in time of the career, and stuff. So. This obviously takes into account that they're in their prime, so we've got Lewis winning by a comfortable margin, easily the most comfortable margin of the first round. It was a very hot first round.
You hate to say it, but if you had like a bye in the first round where you get the easiest opponent, I think Joe Louis may have drawn it.
It could be. It could be. Let's go ahead and go over to the other side of the bracket, because the other side of the bracket...
Wait a minute, Miguel.
All right,
We're not finished yet. You gonna hang up on me?
No, Mike, right. I forgot.
Rocky Marciano, a man known as the Brockton Blockbuster, with a stunning record of 49-0. It troubles me he didn't try to go for 50. And he had wins over Jersey Joe Walcott, Roland Lastarza, Ezra Charles twice, I might add, and Don Cockle, and Archie Moore. We are sorry to see him handed his first professional loss, but he's got to go.
Hasta la vista.
Yeah.
All righty. So now we're down to 4 on the heavyweights. And like I said, we're going to mix them up later. But what we got here is we got Joe Louis, Ezra Charles, Muhammad Ali, and Sam Langford through into the round of 8. Let's go over to the little guys. The little guys, the results have a little bit more leaning towards one guy here. But I still think we had some excellent analysis done here. The first match was Willie Pep against Tony Canzoneri, and like I said before, I got an Italian boss who's probably going to be pissed at me for getting rid of one of these guys early, but there are no Jews on this list, so one of these Italians got to go.
Go ahead. You want to talk about the results?
Dave, go ahead and hit us.
All right, so Pep versus Canzoneri. Pep won very convincingly. Pep won 83 simulations, 68 by decision, 15
that's
by
crazy.
stop.
Go ahead.
Go, Dave.
Canzoneri won 15 simulations, 8 by decision, 7 by stoppage. There were 2 draws. Pep had a big advantage in connect percentage, over 45% compared to about 32 for Canzoneri. And Pep landed a little more than 30 punches per round compared to 24 for Canzoneri.
Interesting.
I'm actually shocked by that. I mean, Canzoneri, in my opinion, I thought he would, possibly go on to the finals.
He was a late ad in the early discussion just because, we wrapped up and put a few guys in that really belonged in at the end. And I am a little bit surprised at the disparity here, but I think what it does go to show is that Willie Pep is a guy that you really got to look at as dangerous in this, especially with the pound for pound. The pound for pound setting. I think if you take that off, that changes this because Canzoneri will be slightly bigger, and at the end of the day, sometimes with other things evening out, size is what decides things. But with that balancing pound for pound, Pep is really going to be dangerous in this tournament because, or obviously everybody talks about the reputation with defense and things like that. Possibly the best defensive fighter of all time. That's a really dangerous thing to have working in your simulation. You know what I mean? If there's a certain rating on defense and stuff, and his is the absolute highest, it could give him a real mathematical advantage in this thing. Canzoneri, he went 15-83-2 against the guy. It's just hard to fathom. Those are records for, workhorses and stuff. So Pep turned Canzoneri, a legendary fighter, into a workhorse, according to the simulation. So that defensive skill may be unbalanced in the simulation, or he deserves more beyond that to his reputation. Obviously, it's there, but it should be lauded. He should be lauded as one of the best of all time.
I agree. I can't agree more. Anything, Dave? What's your opinion of that?
I wasn't surprised at the winner. I was a little surprised at the disparity in the margin of victory. Pep in the title bout simulator, he is very highly rated in things like boxing skills and defense. The only areas where he might be rated a little more lowly is obviously punching power and chin.
Interesting. Yeah, and he did get knocked out in half the fights he lost, basically. So now,
well, Tony Canzoneri, he had a record of 141 wins, 24 losses, 10 draws, and 4 newspaper decisions. Among other world champions that he beat were Frank Click, Baby Azamendi, Jimmy McLarnin, and Kid Chocolate.
Azamendi.
Man, dude, I'm from the South Side, bro. You know what I'm saying?
I'm okay with that.
You're going to be interrupting and correcting my grammar a lot. Canzoneri was a 3-time world champion. He held titles. He held a total of 5 world titles. He is a member of an exclusive boxing world champions group that have won titles in 3 or more divisions. As Richard Dawson from Price is Right would say, parting gifts are in the rear. We hope that you enjoyed your stay with us. Man, I tell you, Tony Canzoneri is one of my favorite fighters,
man. Now, for this next fight, we've got... This one is, one for a time machine, and anything that could be happening, with time, space continuum or whatever that we could do to make this fight happen, we should. Because we got Joe Gans against Roberto Duran, and I picture this to be just a real street fight.
I don't see them. I see them taking center of the ring and just throwing.
So let's read through the numbers first.
Okay, so Duran won this simulation cleanly, winning 56 compared to 34 for Gans, 10 fights into the draws. The interesting thing was that Gans was he landed more punches, 10 more punches per round. He had a higher connect percentage, about 42% to 25%. But Duran had a big edge in power shots and scored about 4 times as many knockdowns as Joe Gans. 0.82 per fight compared to 0.23 per fight for Gans. And of Duran's 56 victories, more than half, 31 came by decision.
It's an interesting result because I almost thought that this was going to resemble Moore and Ezzard Charles, who just knocked each other senseless, half the time. And it didn't turn out that way, and it's interesting, but, Gans does have that reputation as the old master that I would would rate him high in things like boxing skill and things like some of the items that you've mentioned. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was well done that the program gives good ratings to Duran in some of those fields as well, especially as a lightweight when he was a real monster, because he was a hell of a boxer, but if the simulation has the intangibles of, guts or bottom or whatever term from whatever era you want to use, balls, Duran would have to rate super high on some of that stuff. So Duran is eliminated an all-time great and a historic figure.
I agree.
Dave, were you surprised at this one?
What's that?
Were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised at the outcome. I was maybe surprised at the disparity between the two. I expected something more like a Moore Charles or the result we got with Greg Langford that was basically 50-50, but slightly tilted towards Duran.
Right. So I'm going to take us into the next fight because the next fight basically brings us Henry Armstrong against Kid Chocolate. And Dave, I'll let you talk first because I know Mike's going to give me an earful.
Okay, Armstrong won this one pretty convincingly. 79 simulations to 18 for Chocolate. 3 fights came out as draws. 71 of Armstrong's 79 victories came by stoppage.
Jesus. Well, Kid Chocolate always fought. He went up 2 weight classes.
So did Henry.
Hey, slow down over there.
Well, I'm ready, Mike. That's all I'm saying. Dave, read through the rest of the numbers. We'll keep Mike shut.
Keep going. We're listening.
All right, so Chocolate actually had the higher connect percentage, 41.4% to about 30% for Armstrong, but Armstrong landed more punches, obviously because he threw more punches too. So he had about a 25 to 21 edge in punches landed per round. Armstrong scored about 10 times as many knockdowns as Kid Chocolate, averaging over, close to 1.5 per fight, compared to only 0.15 per fight for Chocolate. If I was doing this as a markup, I would have, come out Armstrong TKO 10.
Armstrong TKO 10.
That would roughly the average length of all the
Now, Dave, just so you know, what a Kid Chocolate fan I am, I illegally traveled to Cuba to visit his childhood home. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Just keep that between us 3.
Well, luckily, that's about our audience here. Maybe Palmer will listen.
Whatever you do, don't report me. I've been to Cuba 3 times.
But
all right.
Anyway, if we get into illicit behavior, that's why he's a fan of Kid Chocolate. I don't know, Hey, this is what this fight brings out to me. Kid Chocolate, I put on I kept off my list, and Mike brought him up. And I got to be straight. I think I mentioned it. If I'm repeating for people who are actually listening, but I mixed him up with Kid Gavilan in my head in the original conversation. So a real analysis of Kid Chocolate, you can put him in this discussion because he has got terrific numbers. He represents Cuba, and he's just got a terrific resume. But Armstrong, like I said, he turns up 1, 2, or 3 in a lot of the best of all time lists. And I think this simulation really worked out to show something very interesting about Armstrong, because you've got the windmill punching, you've got the world championships, you've got the run in 37 and stuff. But more than anything, Henry Armstrong was a knockout killer. His nicknames, like Mike has pointed out in the past, indicated Homicide Hank and things like that. And this thing,
that guy just struck fear in people. I think most of the people that fought Armstrong lost that fight prior to even stepping through those ropes.
It all goes into that, but unless Sugar Ray Robinson and Mickey Walker, which is the last fight, are going to change this, Armstrong is going to be the only guy that gets through here with a finish in the first round and with a stoppage. And when you consider the whole 100 fight simulation, Armstrong is clearly the knockout puncher in this field.
Yeah,
And there you have it. And that sets us up.
Well, no, it doesn't.
Thanks, Mike.
136 wins, 10 losses, 6 draws. After going up in weight class to the junior lightweight division, he completed his dreams of becoming Cuba's first world boxing champion when he knocked out the defending world junior lightweight champion Benny Bass in 7 rounds. He finished the year going up in weight once again and challenging world lightweight champion Tony Canzoneri, losing by decision in 15. My favorite fighter and a giant amongst the little guys. Big partier. I think he had died of syphilis. That was my guy, man.
And Mike, it's interesting just so that you realize how bent Mike is. Like I said, I've known Mike for 15 years, and he's completely sober. So
yeah, I haven't drank since I haven't had a legal sip of alcohol.
So it's fascinating that he likes the party animals, but sometimes the stories take you away.
I think if he really focused on his career, I mean, his losses were all outside of his weight class, and I don't know. I think his body of work speaks for itself, and I'm a big Kid Chocolate fan. You know, he certainly coming from a small little island, he did really big things.
And I agree. It's just he ran into Homicide Hank. You know.
Right. Bad move.
Dave, you want to add something there? You want to head into Sugar Ray and Mickey Walker?
I think Armstrong has to be, probably one of the two or three favorites here.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be good next round. Let's go ahead and do Sugar Ray Robinson and Mickey Walker, which is our last fight of the simulation here.
Okay, Sugar Ray won this pretty cleanly.
Wow.
62 simulations compared to 31 for Mickey Walker. 7 fights ended in draws. 35 of Robinson's 62 victories came by decision. Robinson had a slight edge in punches landed per round, 23-21. He had a huge advantage in connect percentage, roughly 46% compared to 27% for Mickey Walker. And in the end, he won this pretty cleanly.
Wow.
Well, when we talked about Armstrong being one of those guys that usually pops up 1, 2, or 3, that obviously goes for Sugar Ray Robinson as well. And I think it shows. Walker is one of those guys that I think if you turn the pound for pound list or setting off, would be a lot more dangerous here because he was able to fight across weight classes, and he in this case, he's got wins over guys that had the heavyweight title and stuff.
Crazy, huh?
I think it's Jack Sharkey. I don't want to get it wrong, but I'm pretty sure. But the point is Walker could have been in the big guy tournament, and he's down here. And if this pound for pound thing wasn't turned on, he'd be a big guy here. With the pound for pound thing, I'm pretty sure Willie Pep would beat him. But if it were a real fight with them, his size would have probably made all the difference, and it would have been a mauling. So it's a little bit of an inglorious exit for a guy who could be an X factor in a real legitimate tournament, of live people, I think. Mickey Walker was one of Keith Palmer's guys as well, and they both made exits here. So things are looking bad too, because Armstrong's my guy, and I'm getting through here.
Dave, out of all these fighters, I think you said that you were a Sugar Ray fan, Sugar Ray Robinson fan.
I think if he would be near the very top of my pound for pound list. I mean, he was what 128, 1-2 at one point in his career.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous, and I don't think this simulation is a knock on Mickey Walker. I just think Ray Robinson was just that good.
Okay. I mean, we're gonna see what happens here in the second round. I like the way it worked out in terms of.
Well, it made really hard decisions easier.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd have an entire hour-long podcast on each of these fights.
Yeah, no, I don't think we would have gotten we would have gotten to such clean conclusions, especially, I mean, it elegantly gave us a lot of even matches, especially on the heavyweight side. You've got a semblance of what reality might have been like. You can only imagine in your head. Like I said, the text that the simulator does is really good stuff, but you can only imagine in your head really what's going on here. But the points of discussion that came up here, Pep dominating his first round opponent kind of thing, and then now where does he place on people's all-time greats? I think you can find people that will say Willie Pep is the best fighter of all time. Defensively, absolutely, but I think you can cross over and find people who will say he was the best. Not as many as say that about Sugar Ray Robinson or Harry Greb maybe, but Pep has his followers and that's for sure.
Let me get to Mickey Walker.
Okay.
A man known as the Toy Bulldog. 131 wins, 25 losses, 5 draws, and 5 no contests. A 2-time world champion with a welterweight win over Jack Britton and a middleweight win over Tiger Flowers. He tried to become a member of the exclusive group of boxers who have been world champions in 3 different weight classes. However, he failed his attempt when he defeated in a close 10-round decision to world lightweight champion Tony Longren. This guy, Mickey Walker, was a machine. That guy lived to fight. He was afraid of nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy is a man.
We've got on tap to a future podcast of guys you take, to a street fighter, a bar fighter, an alley fight, or as I put it, or a fight in a ditch in World War I. And Walker's going to be one of those guys, but there's a lot of guys like that. I'm going to forget his name, but Palmer's got a guy from Indiana called the Hoosier Playboy as a nickname. That's a good nickname. His real name's going to escape me right now, but he was a guy who had a reputation as a street fighter. Literally, the stories are that because he used to fight cops a lot and not like cops, that he got tossed down a flight of stairs by some cops. That's just rumor, Owen Moran, another guy, a little guy, but known for street fighting, known for fighting cops in New York City and stuff like that. So I like that. I think we had those guys represented in here in spirit with Gans.
Chuck Wiggins.
Yeah, there you go. That's the fella.
Okay, now what brought this conversation up is Palmer went to the Police Athletic League, and they have a picture of Chuck Wiggins on there. Meanwhile, I think the police murdered him. I think that's how he died. Like, he hated the police so much, and finally the police got sick and tired of him, and he killed him.
Yeah, he fell down a flight of stairs or something. Is what
couple times.
So,
yeah, couple times.
But like I said, those street kind of guys, that's for a different discussion. We represented him here with Roberto Duran, and Duran actually is now into the round of 8.
As he should be.
And so this is what we're going to do, Dave. I'm going to ask you to stick with us on the simulation. Maybe we can get through the tournament. Hopefully Keith will be back next time. We'll see if a podcast with the 4 of us is not too confusing. But I think it would be great to put the old team together. And what we would do is we would continue this 8-man with the 8 men left. What I've done here is I've set up the bracket already. I'm going to take advantage of the simulator's pound-for-pound setting. And I'm going to just go ahead and mix them up. Whereas we had divided them big and little, we're just going to mix them up now and make the best fights possible in terms of what I want to see.
So essentially, we're mimicking UFC 8, which featured the David versus Goliath bouts. A little
bit, if you want to go that route. I think obviously, in terms of a lot of these guys are older fighters. You've got Duran, maybe more of a modern guy, but old school. But there's no doubt in my mind that we're talking about a far, far, far higher skill level and a sport that's far, far more developed than you saw it in MMA back at what you're talking about.
Without a doubt. Now, Dave, for conversation purposes, could you run them as well without the pound for pound differences, just to see if any of these little guys can get through?
Yeah, it would completely change the results.
No, but just for discussions, I just want to see if one of these little guys can get a win.
Let's see what we run. Let's see what we run, because we're gonna have to give Dave some time to run the sims and do the things, and maybe we could line it up for next week. But the matchups that we're gonna look at is gonna be we're gonna take Willie Pep and put him in against Sam Langford. We're gonna take Muhammad Ali and face him off with Henry Armstrong. We're going to go with another projected street fight of Ezzard Charles and Roberto Duran. And that leaves you Sugar Ray Robinson versus Joe Louis. And
listen to that.
I think we have to kind of say that with some profound silence, because that's a pretty amazing tournament. Now, you can, if you're out there and you disagree that these are not the top 8 boxers of all time, more power to you. You're absolutely right in having your opinion if you could back it up and talk your way. We could run the simulation again and get different guys, but this 8 right here is a hallowed 8. I don't care what anybody says.
I'll tell you one guy that I wish we would have considered was Salvador Sanchez too. When we started initially discussing great fighters.
I had him on my list, actually. I had put him in there, but I had forgotten Joe Louis. That's what happened to Salvador. And we could do that again. Dave, what do you think of these 8 that we're left with here?
A pretty formidable group.
Now, you had a couple of guys, just in your opinion, you were sorry to see Greb go, was one of the notes I made from our previous setup discussions. And in the long run, I think at the 16-round level, on a personal level, that you'd probably have put Sugar Ray Leonard in there. Is that right? I'll let you a little bit elaborate so that people get a good feel for what your style is with this stuff, because I know that there's a lot of depth to what you're bringing here.
Yeah, I was. Greb and Langford, they both easily be in my probably my top 7 pound for pound all time. As far as Ray Leonard, he did have a relatively short career, 40 fights, which pales to some of the all-time greats. But I think about it, it's almost like Gale Sayers in football. That Gale Sayers only played for 4 or 5 years, but for that period he was amazing.
Yeah.
He's considered one of the top running backs ever. The quality of opposition that Leonard faced was top-notch. 4 Hall of Famers, Benitez, Duran. Duran is still in this tournament. Tommy Hearns, who I think is very underrated. And
I agree with that.
Marvin Hagler, who's one of the 4 or 5 top middleweights ever.
Well, Hagler made our final cut, but when we had to eliminate people, we just said, well, is he a multiple weight class world champion? So he had to go. That doesn't really. It was just a way of eliminating people more so than it was of just us saying, well, he's not better because of.
And I neglected. We talked about Sugar Ray Leonard as well, and it was sort of my criteria of the limited fights, especially towards the end of his career. There are guys that lose fights at the end of their career or years. Like Muhammad Ali, you can't fault him for not fighting for 3 years. But there are guys that are burning off time. I'll give you a good example in modern times is Andre Ward. You know what I mean? It's just like they're taking years out of their prime and messing around to the point where, you lose years and you look back at it and there could have been more. So we'll have to, maybe we'll do another one of these with Dave aboard from the very beginning so that we can get a different perspective. And I'm sure we'll wind up with a different field. But for right now, I want to thank you guys for your time. We're running right at about an hour. I think it worked out really great. Went really smooth, Dave. I appreciate your time. The first time joining us, it really went exceptionally well, and I hope you had a good time.
Great. I appreciate being included.
Mike, then I'm going to go ahead and sign off then on the Talk and Shoot podcast.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.